Hi everyone, my name is Siamon Emery, creator of Semantic Regression. And in this episode of The Growth Architect, we get to talk about how we can reframe some of the most traumatic experiences that we've experienced, either through childhood or in our adult years, to one of connection and love. How this healing is available to everyone, and how from this moment on, we can change totally the story that we want to share with everybody else. Hope to see you in the podcast.
And hello, fabulous person. Beate Gillette here. I am the host of the Business Growth Architect Show, and I want to welcome you to today's episode where we discuss how to navigate strategy and spirituality to achieve time and financial freedom. Truly successful people have learned how to master both, a clear intention and a strategy to execute that in a spiritual practice that will help them to stay in alignment and on purpose. Please enjoy the show and listen to what our guest today has to say about this very topic. Welcome back. Beate Gillette here from the Business Growth Architect Show. And today I am live with Siamon Emery. And Siamon is going to talk about something I think many of us kind of know they need to deal with, kind of do a little bit, but are they really? And that is, are you willing to look at the trauma that you've experienced, the story that trauma represents in your life, and what are you going to do with it? And Siamon, you are the man that will answer all these questions. Welcome to the show.
I'll do my best to answer the questions presented to me, Beate. But yes, I
and you got about a half hour or so.
Yeah, perfect. All I need. Perfect.
For somebody who has never heard of you, is not familiar with your work, will you tell them what it is that you do and what problem do you solve for your clients?
Well, literally, I solve a process that's basically called fear conditioning. So if we come into an experience, look, it can be childhood, based around childhood, not a problem, yes. It also can be based around also experiences in our adolescence or our early formative years. And so what we usually tend to happen, then we'll have a negative experience, or we'll have an experience that sticks with us or stays with us. We'll then get a conditioning around that experience that will say to us, or into our limbic system, which is like our emotional brain, that that's not fun or that's not nice. So I don't want to go there anymore. And so then we'll put things and stuff in our life to avoid some of those scenarios. And so it can really simply be like, okay, I don't want to be in that job anymore because I had a really bad experience in that job interview, or that experience with starting this business, or with hanging around this type of person. It can be all of those things intertwined and together. And then we can all lump it into this big conditioning space where we go, oh, that's something that I'm just going to now leave because that was a bad experience that I no longer wish to explore anymore.
Is it like, I used to have a lot of friends in advertising or in publishing. And then is that when they say, I hate the publishing industry or advertising sucks? I have a bad experience, but I'm not dealing with my one bad experience. Now I have to find something or someone to be at fault. Is that what it is?
Correct. So then we look at it so that experience then, if we have that one bad experience, yeah. And then we look at it in isolation, and then we go, okay, it must be that experience that's actually created the reaction that I have in isolation. So then we use the experience as a way to avoid then those scenarios or those situations again in those life. Because in our experience, that situation said, that was not nice, that was not fun, that was uncomfortable, that made me scared, that made me feel unsafe. And so then we sit with the actual scenario, and then it's so much easier for us just to leave that as it is and not actually investigate in further, because why would we?
Let's go right there. So let's say that the reason I did this isn't because I had a bad experience. I mean, I did have a bad experience. That's the truth. Because my boss did say something or give credit to someone else. But that by itself, I may be able to shrug off on normal circumstances and say, well, that just happens. People don't know better, or they do what they do. But you say there might be an underlying deeper trauma to it. And so let's talk about how does this sort of connect. And I want to give you an example so we can make this really real. So for those of you watching this as a video, you'll see me sitting here in wet hair because I literally just got out of the shower. Our Siamon was kind enough to push the interview for an hour because we had been gifted by an organization that helps victims of natural catastrophes with a whole team of 10 people that come and they dig through your rubble and they try to find trinkets, memories, memorabilias to help you. And one of the things that I found was a piece of gold. And I thought it was from a gold ring. And this particular gold ring was in a separate jewelry box, deep hidden in the closet, because the ring was on the hand of my abuser. And I remember the ring vividly, and I had a visceral reaction when I inherited the ring. And I couldn't bear to look at it. I couldn't bear to wear it. I buried it in the jewelry box, and now I have this clump of gold. So what is it about something like this, like trauma, a trigger? What's the story like? Help us figure out. It's a ring. I mean, it has no meaning. Really, it's a ring. It's a gold ring with a bunch of stones in it, but it's just a ring. But what is it about the symbolism of something like that that catches us so hard?
Well, no, it isn't just a ring for you, though, Bea. It's not just a ring. It's not just a clump of gold with some gems in it, with some colored stones in it. That's not at all what it is. What it represents, and the symbolism of it is directly back to your abuser. Does your body instantly say this as even in the depths of that emotional experience you're having, you've buried it completely away from you. You don't even know. You can't even remember potentially probably that it was there during the fire. And then all of a sudden when you're sifting through, what's the first thing that you think that you've come across?
Pain.
Yeah. And so then how do you identify that pain? That pain sits with you from your abuser still. So even though you're in a completely different emotional response, you still have a conditioning that holds your body in that space of identifying that experience, that abusive experience.
That's just nuts, right? If you really think about it. So I'm an adult. I've done a lot of work, certainly been doing my self-development work. And you look at this and you go, wow, I have emotions about this. What do we do? What do we do with, and what do we tell our audience where we say, okay, in order for you to really get where you need to go or where you want to go, and you make these choices based upon where you want to go, not what you've been conditioned to react to, how do we snap them out of it? How do we help them out of it? How do I leave something like this behind?
Well, it starts really with actually creating a capacity in that limbic system, in that emotional body, that nervous system. So we start to really work with the body. So we start to calm it down as much as we can. We start on this meditative process that I use. It's actually like a yoga nidra. I rotate through the body in different circumstances and different understandings. Then we just start to get an understanding for what our body is feeling in the moment. I introduce some really subtle techniques to help you calm into your body. Watch the shoulders drop, start to yawn a little bit. And so what we're doing is we're creating capacity in your nervous system. So that capacity then looks like, once you have that capacity, you don't go straight into a 10 out of 10 overwhelm when you get confronted by the same emotional trigger. You'll go to a 3 or a 5. If I'm going to create a space in your body that's going to sit with that aspect of yourself that was abused. So that person, that little person, I'm assuming, that young lady or that woman who really needed an adult in there, who really needed somebody to say, you're okay, I have you, you're fine, you're safe. So what we're going to do is we're going to create that together in your body. So how we do that is we create the system and the feeling of connection to that place. And so what's really interesting about it with the way that I work is, for the most part, Bea, I don't actually want to know about your trauma. I actually don't want to know about the negative things. I think, Freud's understanding of how we work with mental issues is we want to talk about them and talk therapy and sort of eke out every little understanding we can about the experience. Whereas in actual fact, given my experience,
it just re-traumatizes you over and over and over again.
So if talking about that re-traumatizes you a bit, do you think that talking about really beautiful and really connected experiences from your childhood can actually re-engage the safety from that space as well.
That's a thought I've never had. I understand that there are certain schools of thoughts. The one is, talk about it, experience what it feels like, release it, let it go, write the letters, the journals, burn it. I find very much like what you just said, that process does not work really well for me. So let's just say, for the sake of this podcast, we've done that. We're not going to talk about it. What else is there? So there is a plant medicine, which I have done, which I like. There is religion, prayer, which many people do. There's meditation. And so tell us about this method of yours because it sounds like it's a combination of somatic healing and meditation. What is it?
Okay. So it is basically those two things. So just a quick history into my experience, right? So I was born into a family of two intravenous drug users. I was born into what we would call the drug den in Sydney. And then for the first 5 years of my life, nothing was stable. It was all completely fluid. I was passed around. So never any consistency and never anybody and never really anything from my early stages of remembering of anything good from that period of time in my life. And so obviously I was, through the enormous amounts of therapy, different therapeutic approaches I went through. I did all of the things. I did all the EMDRs. I did psychedelics. I went and lived in India for a period of time and got my diploma of yogic studies. I've been through so many different things. But as you say, like, what is the process? It's like I couldn't shift it. It was still there. I was so emotionally self-aware that I cognitively knew that okay, this experience that I had as a child is really going to basically, my trajectory is jail, addiction, or death. So even in that space, I knew that because looking at the ACE score, so, adverse childhood experiences, says if you score more than 7 or 5, you're this many more times susceptible to cancer and to all of these other, anyway, we don't need to go down that space. I couldn't shift it until I went to India. And when I come back from India, India was traumatizing on its own. But what I brought back from that was this system called Yoga Nidra. So Yoga Nidra is a body-based awareness where I sit you down. We're just sitting in front of the camera here. You close your eyes. I talk some really, really simple breathing exercises that we get you connected into your body. I just rotate right hand, index finger, middle finger, ring finger, pinky finger, thumb. So just get you identifying, get you visualizing behind the closed eyes. What that initially does is it starts to pull your awareness out of this thinking amygdala, sort of fear-conditioned brain, this limbic system brain that you've consistently been in for so long, gets you into your body. Okay, great. I'm in the body. Where do we go? Right. So in my experience, what happens when I consistently think about the negative things in my life? Well, then I get a negative reaction that comes back into myself. I'm like, okay, and I get this overwhelm consistently, overwhelm, always thinking about the negative, and then always looking around in my environment to be conditioned to see if that was ever going to happen again, just from that childhood experience. So what I replaced that with then was like, when was the first time? So in that state, quietly sitting to myself and just asking myself this really simple question. When was the first time I ever felt safe? And the memory came to me in that moment, in that instant. And I was 4 years old, potentially, or 5. I was sitting on my grandmother's couch. She's German. It was Saturday morning. She brought me the biggest bowl of Rice Krispies and the biggest amount of sugar you could ever want as a 4-year-old boy. Chocolate, wrapped me in a comforter. And then put the Saturday morning cartoons. And so this was the very first memory where I felt completely safe, completely seen, and completely cared for and warmth. And the moment that memory dropped in, it was so specific to me. It was my memory. It wasn't anyone else's memory. It was my memory. My whole body dropped. My whole experience coming to the safety. I was that 4-year-old boy again on that couch with that comforter, experiencing those cartoons on a Saturday morning, and then coming out of that experience and then realizing, looking at my own heart rate, at where I was feeling, how I was feeling in my body. I was exhausted after the experience. Like I'd finally come into like a really connected place. I wasn't always in an adrenal state. My downregulated like my pituitary gland, so there was no cortisol running through. And so then I did a bunch of deeper research. I started doing neuroscience around the understanding as well, and understood that what I was doing was a body-based, body awareness situation that actually changed my brain state. So it actually changed it from a conditioned space where I had synapses of fear, so synapses of hormones that were upregulated to receive cortisol, noradrenaline, or norepinephrine, which is called it in the States, and cortisol. So they had synapses in the brain. They're always really primed to receive those. I was actually starting to downregulate those and then upregulate these connections of serotonin. And then as I was upregulating these connections of safety and love, more memories and connections of safety and love started to appear. Why? Because when we're in that limbic system, when we're in that activated state, we're actually always looking for fear. We're always actually unconsciously from a thing called neuroception, where we're in our environment, we're always passively even just looking and feeling for not safe, because that's what we've always got to be on guard for. And so once I was able to turn that system off and connect it into safety, systems and memories that were relevant to me, I could actually condition myself to come more into my intuition, more into my gut feeling. I could actually creating those things into that space where I could actually be more connected to my body and less in my head.
The visual that I have is like, it's almost like you're taking a train to a train station and you're unhooking one wagon and you're hooking up another one into it, because you are absolutely correct. I think that a subconscious mind, and people say all kinds of things about the subconscious mind, but it is programmed in a particular way. It is what it is. It's there to keep us safe. It's doing a phenomenal job. I don't think God makes mistakes. So if it would have been not a good thing, we wouldn't have it. So there must be a reason why it's still there and so active all the time. But what you are saying is that if I give it too much value, or if I base my decision-making on that wagon that I carry around, and I've never looked what's in the wagon or why I'm even carrying the wagon around, or if it's unnecessarily heavy, or maybe I don't want the wagon at all anymore, I will continue to carry that with me. And then what does that do? Because I think that's really important for us to talk about what I hear you say. Redirect the experience to a positive experience, a rethinking, reprogramming, rewiring. What happens to me if I don't do it?
Well, I think we can see what happens to you if you don't do it. You continually go down the road of fear. Your capacity to hold spaces of dysregulation, so if capacity to hold spaces of not safe, becomes less and less and less. And I'm sure you can witness that in some people who are of advancing age. Their ability to hold a fear state or to be in a fearful place is really reduced because they have no capacity to actually, and it's called allostatic load. So they have no capacity actually to go into another dysregulated state because their adrenals have been on for so long, their cortisol has been pumping for so long. There's just no capacity in the body. So if we've been in that space where our body has been in that fight or flight for so long, and it's been well and truly taken advantage of in the media and in these spaces as well, because what really keeps people engaged is a fear state. Well,
we're seeing this right now. I think we're seeing mastery of this. I mean, this is point blank mastery of keeping people in that state.
So what happens when you're in a fear state, Bea? You have an upregulated limbic system. The amygdala is then going to take over. So it's called amygdala fear conditioning or amygdala hijack. That amygdala is going to take over the prefrontal cortex or the frontal cortex, the frontal lobes, right? The frontal lobes is where we have rational thinking. So if we're just consistently in a fear-based state from our limbic system, now that limbic system is millions of years old. Actually, probably hundreds of millions. This limbic system that we have has been evolving from the very first crustacean that appeared on this planet. That fight or flight, that was the first brain, what we call the lizard brain. That was very much so the first brain. It was like fight, flight, or fawn. Run away, fight it, or just sit still, completely still. And so that evolutionary process has been with us from the dawn of time on this planet. So people who expertly know how to control that will just keep feeding you fear and just keep you. And then what that fear does, it's like somebody running back into a burning building when they've run out of it. Yeah. And they don't know they're in such a fear state. They'll run out of the building and then turn around and run back in because they're actually not using a rational process because it's the conditioning of the brain. The brain doesn't have the resources to actually give us the rational thought and the fight or flight system as well. It's one or the other. And that's an evolutionary process as well. So by then coming out of that fear-based state by creating capacity, by actually managing ourselves, by holding ourselves in safety. Let's make it relevant to you. I'm going to go to an experience in your life that you may have completely forgotten about because it hasn't been relevant to you. And then as soon as you find that space, you go, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that in years. Why haven't you thought about why you were loved and safe? Because it's actually not relevant to your current experience because you're in a really fear-activated state. So just by helping you to come back into your body, by connecting you to lived experiences, not anyone else's lived experience, we then have the ability then to actually start to feel the fear and see the fear for what it is.
Now, how does this relate to my work, to business?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is the business growth architecture after all. So now let's say I have these experiences. I'm cautious. I don't want to lose money. It's scary enough the way it is. The market's uncertain. Business is uncertain. Future's uncertain. How do I shake it off? Can I shake it off? What do I do? I want to run a business. I need to feed my family. I want to help more people. I want to make an impact in this world. How does this relate to that?
Well, first of all, we'll talk about what's your why? Why are you actually doing this? Are you doing it for a reason to create comfort, or are you doing it to prove to somebody, to a parent maybe, or to a colleague, or to somebody else? Then this process, how is that relevant to that experience then? We're going to show you that being more connected to your intuition, to your actual rational thinking, and giving everything space before we actually act out in a way will give you so much more information in the moment than you could ever have previously thought about. A lot of time in business, when we have to make extreme decisions that could potentially, send us bankrupt almost, or certainly could go 50-50. It's like, well, if I'd make this choice here, but there's also a potential that I'm going to 10x what we've got as well. I have to rationally think out how that's going to be approaching. If you're coming at it from a place of fear and of not connected to who you are, then you're going to make the wrong decision flat out. And you're going to be constantly trying to manage all of the expectations around you or all of the people around you at the same time.
But people, so here's, I think, where it gets really interesting, because just judging at what's going on right now around us, people go and they look for information that confirms what they already believe in. And then they think it's logical and they're facts. Are they facts? And is it logical? Or is there a part about our brain that is trying to trick us into being more? I had this exchange yesterday, and somebody said that he believes that a particular statement that somebody made was correct. And then somebody says, well, it's not correct because what this person said affects me in a negative way. And my business, and this was a conversation about tariffs, my business, instead of $5, it costs now $22. And then this person said, well, you have to prove that to me. And I'm looking at this and I'm going like, wait, dude. So wait, you taking what somebody says to you with no proof, but that's the truth. But the person that counters what you believe in needs to provide proof for you to believe it, which is ridiculous. Is there an ultimate truth in all of this anyway? Or is it all made up stories to begin with? And we just need to know we are always telling ourselves stories.
It's ideology. If you're ideologically aligned to an outcome or to a person, you're going to defend that position to the grave. Regardless.
So that is the story then.
Yep, those people are ideologically attached to those belief systems, and because that's so ingrained in them, because that them creates safety for them. It goes, oh yes, that makes sense to me. That's really clear. I don't have to do the research. I'm fine. That feels right in my body because everything else feels really scary, but that really feels right. That person seems to be in control. Absolutely. And I'm not going to do any fact checking. I'm not going to listen to anybody else's problem. This is the hill that I'm going to stand on with this, and nobody can reach me on this hill. And that's totally fine. They can do what they choose to. But history shows that, eventually people who hold on to ideology or an ideological aspect of their, in their belief system usually doesn't end well for them.
No, it certainly does not. So do I then need to be conscientious about what my brain tells me? Because that, I think, is the real difficult part, Simon,
Yeah.
is that if I can't even trust my own brain and my own thinking, we kind of like all screwed. Because if this is my belief system and I was raised to believe this, and now I'm listening to the show and you go like, it may not be all that it's made out to.
No. It's not about, it may not be what it's all made out to be. Absolutely. That experience that you had in your childhood is absolutely there. I'm not saying that we deny it at all. What I'm saying is we give enough attention and noise, for want of a better word, to the beautiful parts of it as well. So we balance out. We just go, hey, this was really crappy for a long time and I had some crap stuff, but also there were some really beautiful times. And so what that does in what the question you've just answered is that then we come more into a connected space where we are using, we are using more critical thinking areas of our brain that gives us the capacity then actually to make rational understandings about what people are saying and also allow the person in front of us to have their opinion. What they say doesn't directly affect me because I'm safe, I'm connected, I know my truth. I don't have to then force anyone else in front of me to change their opinion. They're free to have their opinion. They're free to have their word, their understanding. That's fine. That doesn't affect me. It doesn't. So what we're trying to do is, as you can see, and what's happening in this moment is the world is in a really bad place. I'm going to align my nervous system and my way of being and my life to you because you've resonated. You've created a resonance in my body that says, yes, I've validated, yes, it's not safe. But just because it's not safe doesn't mean it's relevant to what this guy is saying. This person's life is just not safe from a childhood perspective. So they've attached that understanding, that childhood experience on to this person that then they go, here's my savior. Yes, he understands me. My fear is so great. That fear, they're not identifying the fear, where the fears come from. Like you said with the wagon, they're not looking in the wagon. They're just dragging it with them and going, hey, here's my savior. Ideology opposed. So it's really a lizard brain thinking. It's a limbic system and they know how to do it so well. A lot of people know how to do it so well.
So if I want to create the future, you're saying that I have to figure out on how to release the trauma, but it may not necessarily be releasing in the way we have heard therapists, but by replacing it with more pleasant memories, which we also all have.
Just not replacing, just including.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. I certainly noticed that when these memories came back of what actually happened, it's very difficult with that overwhelming negative emotion then to go, oh, yeah, but we always had birthday parties when we were children. And they were nice birthday parties and we got to go to movies. And then there's a part of my brain where my brain wants to go, well, but was she not just too lazy to bake her own cake? And did she not want to have you in the house? And is that why she sent you to the movie theater with your friends so that she didn't have to do the work? And so I can see what you're saying is that what was a pleasant experience, because who doesn't like to go to see a movie with a bunch of chocolate bars in their hands, is now tainted by a different experience. And it's almost like being darkened. And I might now drag a good experience into a bad experience, what I'm hearing.
That's exactly what you're hearing. How I want you to really start to reframe it or think about it. You're an adult. You're actually really successful in many ways. Yeah. So when you look back to, and I'm going to use a little bit of internal family systems here. Okay. When you look back to that part in your life, to that child in your life, what did she need in that moment?
She needed just to know that she was fine, that she was a good kid.
And so now can you, from this point of view today, from you, the person you are today, can you go back and tell her that?
Oh, I've told her that. We've been having lots and lots of conversations.
Okay, great. So you've told her that now.
I did.
Can you go back and let her feel that? Feel what it feels like to be safe, to feel what it feels like to make it to how you've made it now. What does it feel like to be the woman you are, the successful woman you are today? To go back to there and sit with her and say, hey, and you're actually the mother to her now. You're the one who goes back to her and say, you're going to be great. You're doing really well. You're actually doing.
Yeah, that was an incredibly powerful experience to go into that room after a beating and say, you know what, the next 10 years are going to suck, but you're strong, you're going to make it, and one day you're going to help a lot of people. And these experiences are going to shape who you are, but you're going to be okay.
But the major difference here is not only are you going to be okay, hey, you're fine. So creating the capacity to feel the grief of that childhood. And that's okay. It's welcome. All versions of me are welcome here. I'm not suppressing anything. I'm allowing everything to be here. All of it is welcome. Now, through creating the safety in my body, through creating a really regulated space, I can help that part of me co-regulate through me. I know it sounds a little bit esoteric, but this is how it works.
I actually don't think this sounds too esoteric at all. I think that the awareness is definitely rising for people who don't want to carry the baggage anymore, and they don't want to carry the baggage of their parents. I'm not here to solve that. I'm here to solve my own story. And I think that's really the message that I'm hearing from you, is that we have a choice. So as we're closing this interview, talk to me about what is the choice we want to leave our audience with.
Healing and wholeness is available to everyone from all walks of life, from all experiences, from every adverse childhood experience you could ever want to experience. We were never not whole there. We were never not whole. We were just given experiences from people who didn't know any better themselves, who thought that they weren't whole when they were actually whole as well. I can balance out my world. I can say that actually, for me, all of my experiences have created a life for me that's amazing. I travel the world with what I do, and I get to talk to amazing people like yourself. I get to live in beautiful countries, and I get to help like-minded people like myself. So would I ever want to take my childhood experience away? Never. It's created this version of me that actually I love deeply right now. But if the more that we dig into it, you'll see that actually more and more of those experiences should be more relevant to who you are.
I absolutely love that. So Siamon, for somebody who now wants to get in touch with you and learn about the work you do because they are ready to let it all go and recreate the story, where do we send them?
Certainly, just my webpage, Siamon Emery. So it's SIAMONEM for Mark, ERY.com is my webpage. You can certainly book a free 30-minute call. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, Siamon Emery. In Siamon Emery, but yes, so yeah, there's plenty of places.
Yeah, and we'll have it definitely in the show notes for you, for our listeners, so you can follow them up. And that is it for us for today. Thank you so much for being here. What an interesting interview we had.
Fantastic, Bea. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And that's it for us for today. Please, if you know somebody who is maybe, in your opinion, carrying a little bit too heavy of a burden, or focuses on maybe some of the things that could be shifted into a more positive experience, please share this interview and help them to also be one of those people that says, I love my life, because I think everybody deserves that. And with that, I say goodbye, and I see you next time.
So appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for listening to the entire episode. Please subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star review, a comment, and share this episode with one more person so that you can help us help more people. Thank you again. Until next time. Goodbye.